and we can help reduce our deficit.
Senator's time has expired.
Madam President.
Mr. Majority Leader. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, all post-cloture time with respect to the motion to proceed to S-1845 is considered expired.
Madam
Mr.
President.
Leader. Clerk will report the bill.
Okay.
Calendar number 265, S-1845, a bill to provide for the extension of certain unemployment benefits and for other purposes.
Madam President.
Majority Leader.
It's like Groundhog Day, because this is a picture we've already seen. The very lucid speech given by my friend from New Hampshire is she should have gone back to the congressional record. We've been through this before. We are not going to hurt American children, and that's what it does. We've been through this. This is something they've tried to use in the past to pay for things that are really unfair to American children. Now, Madam President, the other issue is there's been some efforts made, and good faith efforts by the Senator from Ohio to stop double dipping people who are disability and drawing unemployment insurance. We agree with him, and we can take care of that. But it does not save $5.4 or $5.6 billion. The disability community to this point is outraged that anyone would even suggest this. We can stop the double dipping. We were happy to join with them in doing that. But that saves a little over $1 billion. And we're happy, and that's part of the proposal that we'll all have in just a little bit. I received a phone call from a person who's done more for helping people who are disabled than any person in the history of this body. Senior senator from the state of Iowa. And he had been previously engaged and heard about this, and those of us who know Tom Harkin knows how what he does to protect disabled. So I know my friend from Ohio has good intentions, but the disability community will never allow this to happen, and they're right. So, Madam President, my friend, the junior senator from Nevada, had, as some of us know, he's had casts on one leg and now the other leg. He's had some surgery on his ankles. He's had to replace the Achilles tendons on both of his legs. And the cast broke, I think it's on his left leg. I don't know, maybe it's his right leg. I don't remember. I talked to him this morning. And so he had to go to the emergency room to get his cast replaced. So I'm waiting to hear from him as to, I've explained this proposal in some detail to him and his staff, but he hasn't had an opportunity to speak to his staff since he had to rush to the emergency room. At least that's my understanding. So I'm waiting until he gets back. The proposal that Senator Reid has come up with extends unemployment insurance through mid-November. The package does what the Republicans wanted, entirely paid for, entirely paid for. There's structural changes, which they've been demanding, so we've done that. It has reforms that reduce slightly the number of weeks for an unemployed person, that they can remain on the unemployment insurance while all along preserving the extended weeks of high employment states. The legislation that's proposed by Senator Reid tightens the rules for unemployment insurance. It would include a proposal much like that advocated by the senator from Ohio, Senator Portman, that would prevent people from collecting both unemployment insurance and disability insurance at the same time. That's clear. And much of this offset is simply an extension of the Murray-Ryan agreement that we all voted for, or a lot of us voted for earlier. This provision would extend the sequester on mandatory programs for another year. If Republicans have a complaint about this, don't call and complain to Jack Reed. Call Paul Ryan. This is his. This is his idea. Maybe not on this specific issue, but this is, his proposal, his idea. So we believe if it's good enough to help other proposals propounded by my Republican friends in the House, it's good enough to help the unemployed. So in this proposal, there's been a desire to address the concerns of Republicans and Democrats. Is it perfect? Of course not. But Jack Reed has done a remarkably good job, and we believe this is a sound and balanced proposal. Now, I would also say this, Mr. President, Madam President, I'm sorry. This takes care of it for the good part of this year. I wish we could have done it till the first of the year. We can't find enough money. I've been waiting here for more than 24 hours for a reasonable proposal by my Republican friends to pay for this. We don't have one yet. We're not going to strip the rights of people who have health insurance, and we're certainly not going to go after little boys and girls in America who have the child tax credit. So there comes a time when we have to move forward. I note the absence of quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Senator from California?
Never mind.
Oh,
Madam President,
Senator from Ohio?
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Is there objection?
I object.
Objection is heard.
He wants to fill the tree before we do anything.
Okay. Was there an objection?
Yes, objection was heard. Clerk will continue to call the roll.
Ms. Ayon.
She objects to the clerk calling.
Quorum call dispensed with.
Is there objection? Objection is heard. The clerk will continue to call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Well, the pending business in the Senate remains unemployment benefits. Jobless benefits for the long-term unemployed ran out in December. A bipartisan bill to extend unemployment for 3 months is under consideration. Now, you just heard Majority Leader Harry Reid come to the floor talking about the bill itself, and one of the co-sponsors, Dean Heller of Nevada, apparently is in the hospital with a broken ankle. So this means Majority Leader Reid has not been able to bring the latest unemployment bill proposal to him. So we have basically a holding pattern in the Senate as they try to figure out the best way forward. Also, we heard discussion on the Senate floor that a trade promotion authority deal has apparently been agreed to by congressional and administration negotiators. The White House was hoping to get an agreement on trade as part of an effort to create a trade partnership with a group of 11 South American and Asian nations, including Vietnam, Chile, New Zealand, Japan, and Mexico. We'll hear more about that as the days and weeks go forward.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent to call the quorum be terminated.
Without objection.
Madam President, I first of all appreciate everyone's cooperation here and patience more than cooperation. We're doing our best. I've already said what we're trying to do here, and I'll just repeat part of it. We have a proposal that's paid for. It's a pay for that we've used, and it's something that I think is totally valid. It's something that the original idea came from Paul Ryan, but we've used it on another occasion. This does nothing to change that original proposal except extend it for 1 year. On the proposal of my friend from Ohio, he has alerted us to an issue, and we think we've taken care of that in this amendment. I think it's a fine proposal, but the breadth of what he's trying to do is really unfair, and we can't do that. So we're doing our utmost. We've got structural changes in this. It's paid for. It'll pay for it for almost the first of the year, as much money as we are able to find. But we've done everything the Republicans wanted. It's paid for. There are structural changes, and we've taken care of the double dipping of those in the disability committee and unemployment. So on behalf of Senator Reed of Rhode Island, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
The senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, for Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, proposes an amendment number 2631.
I ask yeas and nays on that amendment, Madam President.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. Yeas and nays are ordered.
I have second-degree amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report.
The senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, proposes an amendment number 2632 to amendment number 2631.
I have a cloture motion on the Reed, Rhode Island amendment.
Clerk will report the motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close debate on amendment number 2631 to S. 1845, a bill to provide for the extension of certain unemployment benefits and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows. Reed of Nevada.
Madam President, with the consent of the Senate, I ask that these names not be read.
Is there objection? Without objection.
I have a motion to commit S. 1845, and it has instructions.
Clerk will report.
The senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, moves to commit the bill to the Committee on Finance with instructions, being amendment number 2633.
I ask for the yeas and nays on that motion.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The yeas and nays are ordered.
I have an amendment to the instructions at the desk.
Clerk will report.
The senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, proposes an amendment number 2634 to the instructions of the motion to commit as 1845.
As to the yeas and nays, Madam President,
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The yeas and nays are ordered.
I have a second-degree amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report.
The senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, proposes an amendment number 2635 to amendment number 2634.
I have a cloture motion at the desk.
Clerk will report.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close debate on S. 1845, a bill to provide for the extension of certain unemployment benefits and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows. Reed of Nevada, Reed of Rhode Island, Klobuchar, Warren, Durbin, Whitehouse, Markey, Baldwin, Leahy, Coons, Mikulski, Murray, Warner, Hirono, Murphy, Harkin, and Brown.
Note the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Is there objection? Objection is heard.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent to call the quorum be terminated.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Yes. Madam President, I have the floor here.
Majority Leader. Senator from Ohio.
I thank you, Madam President, for recognizing me. I've been trying to be recognized before the Majority Leader decided to, what we call around here, fill the tree, which means taking away the opportunity for amendments to be offered, although there will be an attempt, I believe, in a moment to offer some. I'm disappointed in that because I think we were very close to reaching an agreement which would have enabled us to move forward with allowing senators on both sides of the aisle to offer some of their ideas on the unemployment insurance extension. Recall, this is an important debate we're having for the American people. It is about whether we go beyond the roughly 26 weeks in unemployment insurance to have an emergency extension again. And on this side of the aisle, there were a few of us who crossed over, in fact, to vote with the entire Democrat majority to say, let's have that debate. We thought we were doing so in good faith, that there would actually be a debate on two issues, really. One is whether it should be paid for or not, and how it should be paid for, which I'll address in a second. But second was how we should reform the unemployment insurance program and, in fact, do other pro-growth policies to actually get at the underlying problem, which is a record number of Americans who are long-term unemployed. Clearly, what we're doing isn't working, and we believe that this is an opportunity for us to help improve the program to actually address the real problem. The President of the United States wants to do that. He called me on Monday and told me that he had hoped that we would be able to address this issue by voting for the motion to proceed, to begin this debate, so that over the next few months, while we had a short-term extension of this program, there could be even more detailed discussions about how to improve the legislation and how to add other elements to it, specifically on how to give people who are long-term unemployed the skills they need to access the jobs that are available. Unfortunately, we're not going to have that opportunity now, it appears, to be able to have this debate over how to pay for it, what the pay-fors ought to be, and, again, how to improve the program. But let me just say, this is unfortunate because we had 60 votes to proceed. That includes certainly 3 of us who are here on the floor today. All 3 of us are willing to move forward with this with a reasonable provision to pay for this over the 3 months, and again, during that period, to come up with a better and improved unemployment insurance program. We were not part of the discussion as to the pay-for that the Majority Leader has just put forward. I appreciate his good faith in wanting to include one of the proposals that I had in my amendment. I honestly do appreciate that. I will say that the offset that he has put in, I've just learned about because I didn't have the opportunity to see it until now. And there is an important difference between what was just offered in the new Democrat proposal and what is in my proposal. My proposal, as I've come to the floor to talk about 3 times now, has been previously proposed in the House. It says that if you get unemployment insurance or you get trade adjustment assistance, then you also do not receive Social Security disability insurance in that same month. Why? Because these programs are mutually exclusive. If you're on Social Security disability, SSDI, that means you are not working by definition. If you are working and lose your job, you are then continuing to look for work, you get TAA. If you have lost your job and you continue to look for work, which is required, you get unemployment insurance. This is why this same general program is laid out in the President's budget, and in fact is something that I believe the administration supports and others. The proposals that Democrats have included says that if you receive unemployment insurance in the month you receive Social Security, then your SSDI is reduced by the amount of unemployment insurance received. Why does that matter? It's not the same thing, and it matters because the proposal that the Majority Leader has proposed saves a lot less money. According to the Congressional Budget Office, my proposal would save about $5.4 billion. Theirs, as I understand it from the distinguished Majority Leader today, would save about $1 billion. So, again, I appreciate him wanting to include it, and I think it is in the same spirit as the amendment that I offered. But honestly, we haven't had the chance to sit down and talk about this. I've tried today to sit down with the Democrat sponsor of the underlying legislation, the other Senator Reid, who in good faith said he wanted to talk about it, but we haven't been able to schedule that, and so we have not had the discussion. So we are just learning today what is in, again, the sort of take-it-or-leave-it proposal that's in the Majority Leader's proposal in filling the tree. Now, there is a possibility, I think procedurally, the Majority Leader has expressed some interest in looking at this, of taking that agreement and altering it somewhat over the next couple of days, because the cloture would not ripen, as I understand, until Monday afternoon. But that still doesn't give all of our other colleagues a chance to offer their good ideas, and there are a bunch of them out there. The Senator from New Hampshire offered hers day before yesterday, talked about it today on the floor, where she wants to take away some of the existing missed payments that are in the child tax credit. I would think all of us would want to do that, to preserve the child tax credits for those who are truly eligible. For those who are not eligible, obviously they shouldn't have access to it. Seems like a sensible amendment to me. I'm a co-sponsor of that amendment. Senator Coates has raised his ideas today, and I think he has some good ideas that ought to be debated. So my hope is that we would be able to go back to where we were prior to filling the tree and to say, let's have a discussion. It can be limited. I think there are a very limited number of amendments. I see the distinguished Republican whips on the floor. I think he indicated to me today there are something under 20 amendments offered by the Republican side. I don't know how many of those have actually been filed, but it seems to me that we could have had a good debate on that and still should. So my hope is that we can come up with a solution here. I do think it's going to require us providing some opportunity for other people to be engaged, and specifically for those of us who want to get to a solution, which is a lot of people on this side of the aisle and that side of the aisle, both sides of the aisle. Let's sit down and talk. We're adults. You know, we have been elected by millions of people to represent them, and it's our responsibility, indeed our commitment to them, that we would sit down across the aisle and work these things out as you would in any other relationship, in your marriage, in your business, with your neighbors. We had some discussion about this yesterday, that for some reason in the United States Senate it seems we are unable to even have the most basic level of discussion and debate. So I'm open to that. I had hoped to do it today. I put my ideas out there. Parts of them have been accepted. I appreciate that, but frankly not the way that we had laid it out in my own amendment. And I do believe that we have the opportunity, if we were to back up, to actually solve this problem, meaning provide what the President says he wants, which is a 3-month extension of long-term unemployment, so that we can sit down, roll up our sleeves as Republicans and Democrats, and come up with a better way to address what is a crisis in this country, which is more people long-term unemployed than ever in the history of our country. Those people are hurting, and clearly the current system isn't working. So just to extend it is not the answer. The answer is for Washington to do its job, and that is to reform these programs so they work for the people we represent.
Majority Leader.
It's the same tune, time and time again. Things are never quite right. They want to offer amendments. We have been waiting here since Monday for pay-fors. The only pay-for we've heard, realistically, to take care of this is something that everyone knows we disagree, to take away health care benefits from the American people. The proposal by my friend from Ohio is not a good proposal. It hurts people who are disabled. And that's the fact. We have stopped dual payments. That's what our amendment does. This is something we've been going through, and the American people have been going through now for years. My friend worked with the senior senator from New Hampshire on energy efficiency. Now, if that wasn't quite a show. I had conversations on numerous, yeah, we got it all taken care of. Republicans are fine to move forward on this. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. We never got anything done. So, Madam President, we are where we are. The Democrats don't need a memo to tell them to have a good conscience about people who are disabled. Be compassionate about people who are unemployed. We don't need a memo. We know people who are long-term unemployed are desperate for help. We are compassionate. We don't need a memo to tell us that. The American people want to know where we stand. Are we going to extend unemployment benefits for people who have been out of work for a long time? That's the issue before this body. And we have bent over backwards through Jack Reed to come up with a proposal to pay for this, to get rid of this issue for this year. We have structural changes in this amendment. We have a pay-for that came from Paul Ryan, the Republican vice presidential candidate this last election cycle. He's chairman of the Budget Committee. So, Madam President, we have done, I think, a yeoman's job through Jack Reed, and we need to move on. and that's what we're going to do. It's the time, there comes a time. Now, if there's a proposal that my friend has, we know his expertise. But the problem is with his expertise, it's always never quite right. It's almost, but not quite right. And so the time is now to fish or cut bait. And they can make all the motions they want to try to complain about, oh, we didn't get offered enough amendments, we need to be more like the Senate used to be. Well, Madam President, I know what the Senate used to be, because I used to be senator. And it doesn't work the way it used to, not because of anything we do wrong, but because of the obstruction of President Obama's agenda. Every day it's more obstruction.
Would the senator yield for a question?
Senator
For a question?
Of course.
Senator from Texas.
Madam President, I'd ask the distinguished majority leader whether it's the position of his caucus and him personally that people ought to be able to collect unemployment compensation and disability benefits simultaneously.
No, and that's why this legislation, Jack Reed's proposal, stops it.
I would further ask the majority leader, it's my understanding that the distinguished senator from Ohio's amendment would discontinue the simultaneous collection of disability and unemployment benefits, but you object to that amendment and instead are blocking that amendment and other amendments by the Republican side of the aisle by one that changes the effective day of the bill one day. In other words, it's purely a blocker bill, has zero substance whatsoever, and does nothing to improve the underlying bill.
Is there a question here in all this? What is the question?
Isn't that right?
Is what right? Is what right?
What I just said.
Well, no, it's not right. Because what the senator from Ohio's amendment does is hurt people who are disabled. This amendment, I repeat, that's part of Jack Reed's amendment, stops people from drawing both benefits at the same time.
I would finally ask the distinguished majority leader if he'd let me ask one more question of him.
Majority Leader. Senator from Texas.
Is the majority leader aware that there are 24 Republican amendments on file, almost all of which deal with the underlying bill in an attempt either to improve workforce education training, provide other reforms to the unemployment compensation system, or otherwise help the economy recover so that people don't have to depend on unemployment insurance, they can get a job? Are you aware that there are those amendments, those ideas on this side of the aisle?
Majority Leader.
I don't know the exact number, but there's always a lot of proposed amendments around. But what I would say is this. Rather than continually denigrating our economy, our president, and frankly, I believe our country, I think that we should have some more constructive things around here. For example, we had today a conversation for an hour and a half with Chairman Bernanke. He's going to be there until the 1st of next month. And it was a very good discussion. And he talked about the vibrancy of this economy now. He said, as we've been saying here, it's not as good as it should be. But he said, with a little bit of help, it would be on fire. And why isn't it on fire? Because of the obstruction over here. And as you know, the new Fed chair, Chairman to be Yellen, has also said that unemployment benefits are a great impetus to helping the economy. For every dollar put into the economy with unemployment benefits, we get $1.50 back. This bill recognizes that these benefits don't go on forever. That's why we've made structural changes. We would be happy any time to sit down and have a good discussion with the senior senator from Texas and anyone else to talk about things we could do. But we have not had a workforce, what's that program called? Since 1998, we have a lot of programs, Madam President, that deal with job retraining, and it's really In 1998, when we did that, it wasn't a bad deal, but here it is, all these many years later. So of course, we need to sit down and talk about ways to improve retraining. This whole country needs that. That's also something that Chairman Bernanke said today. So I repeat, Madam President, let's start being constructive around here. Instead of talking about how terrible things are, let's talk about how things are improving. We have 8 million new jobs since Obama's been president. We have a lot of things good that have happened. Has it been perfect? Not even close to perfect. But let's start working together. Yes,
Does the Majority Leader yield for question?
Bill, of course.
Is it the Majority Leader's intent to allow votes on any Republican amendments?
On what?
On the bill that we're just discussing.
We have been waiting for, this is Thursday, since Monday, to get a proposal from the minority, from the Republicans, as to what they believe would be a good way to pay for this. Nothing other than whack Obamacare. So the answer is, we're where we are now. We've tried a number of different ways on many different pieces of legislation to say, okay, let's just do germane amendments. No. How about relevant amendments? No. How about having a specific number of amendments, and we'll give the minority more than the majority? No, we can't do that either. We want unlimited amendments on everything. And as a result of that, we have the continued obstruction that has taken place in this body for 5 years. It's time we get back to legislating the way we used to.
Is the answer to my question, I'd say to my friend, the Majority Leader, no?
The answer to your question is no.
No.
I know, I'm waiting.
Madam President.
Senator from Ohio.
Madam President, thank you. I just want to make 2 corrections quickly, then yield to my colleague from Indiana. One is the proposal that I did offer had nothing to do with Obamacare, as Majority Leader, I thought, understood, and others do not, including the Senator from New Hampshire's amendments. So we do have a number of amendments, a number of good ideas. We had a debate. Second, it is in the President's budget, so if it's such a terrible proposal, I'm surprised the President would have proposed it.
Would my friend yield for a question?
Sure.
We're in kind of a question asking
of course
here today. Would my friend yield a question?
Of course.
Do you also understand in the President's budget, he calls for revenue in the budget, does he not?
Yes, he does. He calls for major tax increases for American people.
And my friend would also acknowledge, and when presidents submit these budgets, don't they propose a budget rather than nitpicking different pieces of their budget one at a time?
The gentleman's correct, and after having put together one of those budgets myself, I will tell you, you have to stand by all of those policies. And I think if you were to call on the Office of Management and Budget or the Treasury Department, they would tell you they stand by these proposals. And so, yes, it's a package, but they put these in because they think they're good policy. So my only point is I think we've got some good ideas that are not related to Obamacare, since that seems to be an objection by the distinguished Majority Leader. And look, I hope we can work something out here. I do think there's an opportunity for us to do so, but I don't think we can do it unless there's a little bit of give and take and some discussion, at least, which we've not been able to have yet. With that, I yield to my friend from Indiana.
Madam President.
Senator from Indiana.
Madam President, I will be brief. I know my colleagues have travel plans probably, but this is something that we had earnestly hoped that by supporting the motion to proceed, 6 of us, we would have the opportunity to offer an amendment, debate that amendment, and have our colleagues vote on that amendment. To simply say that, for the Majority Leader to say, well, and I quote him, I've looked at these amendments that Republicans have offered, and none of them are reasonable. Isn't that something this body is supposed to achieve by something called a vote? I mean, do we have one person here who runs the place and says, I'll decide whether or not your amendment is reasonable? And if I decide that your amendment is reasonable, along with all the other 23, then we won't have any vote or debate, ability to offer any amendment whatsoever. So I thought the way we settled things here as to whether this body thought something was reasonable or helpful or might correct some of the inequities that have been talked about here was decided by a vote of 100 senators. But it's been decided by the vote, by the decision of one senator who has the power to do what he's doing. But this just perpetuates. The majority leader said that he's been waiting since Monday for Republicans to offer a pay-for. I was down here Tuesday offering 4 options to pay for. Now, I know the majority leader doesn't sit in the office and come to the floor when I come down to speak or tune to the television, but I think his staff would have told him, well, Coates has 4 pay-fors, and I said, I'm not asking for all 4, Mr. Leader. You select the one you think best fits the thoughts and ideas and values of your caucus. So I put 4 out. Majority Leader said that, you know, we're delaying time. We've been waiting for nearly 2 days now for the Majority Leader to make up his mind in terms of what he wanted to do. The three of us who were listed as surprise votes for the motion to proceed weren't even asked to be part of any negotiations. So we were trying to look for a solution to the problem, come together, and have something to offer to our colleagues to vote on. But we weren't even asked to be part of that. So here we are. I'm representing the people of Indiana. Their voice is shut down. I don't even have the ability to offer an amendment that my constituents think they sent me here to do. They didn't send me here just to be told, sit down and forget it. One person decides. So I'm very disappointed. But with that, I would like to, in the interest of time, ask unanimous consent to call up my amendment number 2611.
Madam President.
Majority Leader, is there objection?
Yes.
Majority Leader, objection is heard. Majority Leader.
Just withhold a minute and he can offer his amendment. I do want to say this. Madam President, we get nowhere with dueling amendments. We've learned that in the past. Dueling amendments doesn't do the trick. The issue is pronounced. It's here before us. And we went a step further. In the past, we haven't paid for this. 5 times President Bush signed bills extending unemployment benefits, not paid for. Again, Madam President, we've done a good job of reducing the debt. We have a lot more we can do, but we've reduced it almost $3 trillion already. The issue is now before us. Are we going to extend benefits for people who have been unemployed for a long time? That's the question. We bent over backwards to try to come up with a compromise, a bipartisan piece of legislation. And I repeat, it's paid for with a Paul Ryan paid for. There's structural changes. That's a pretty good deal. And I'm very disappointed that we're at a point now where we have been for 5 years. Nothing is ever quite good enough. They always want more amendments. They always want amendments. But the issue is here before us. Is this body going to vote to extend unemployment benefits paid for, with Paul Ryan's paid for, and with structural changes, or are they going to turn their back on people who are desperate?
President, could I ask the Majority Leader to yield for just one question?
Sure.
Mr. Majority Leader, you just said this body gets nowhere by offering amendments. Does that mean throughout this year it's worthless, meaningless for Republicans to offer any amendments to any bill to try to make improvement or to try to have their voice heard or the voice of the people I represent in Indiana heard on this floor?
Madam President, my friend from Indiana is one of those senators who used to be here when the good old times were here. We didn't have gotcha amendments then. Every amendment offered with rare exception is a gotcha amendment. That isn't what we do here. I've been waiting here since Monday to get pay-fors as to how we can extend unemployment benefits for these people. They come up with stuff that doesn't even pay for 3 months' worth of extensions. So amendments are important, but they have to be, Mr. President, I think we have to go back to the time when Senator Coates was here the first time and start working together to get things done in this body.
Madam President.
Senator from Indiana.
Madam President, this is 100% difference from the time I was here the first time. We were able to offer any amendment, any bill, any time, and the Majority Leader, both Republicans and Democrats, allowed us to do that. This is the first time I've had the experience of not being able to offer an amendment. I think I heard the Majority Leader object, but I wasn't sure. Did he object to my unanimous consent request?
Mr. President.
The objection was heard.
Mr. President, I was there, just like my friend. Things were different then. They certainly were, because we didn't have hundreds of filibusters that were taking place. Filibuster was something that was used rarely. In those days, would you ever have filibustered a Secretary of Defense or all the other cabinet officers? Of course you would not have. And that's why action had to be taken. What my Republican friends have to realize is that filibuster is not a right, it's a privilege, and it's been abused. So my friend can lecture me, and I'm happy to listen to his many lectures. But I was here. I know how things used to work. And what has gone on the last 5 years would never have taken place in those days.
Was the Majority Leader yield for question?
Yes.
He brings up the Secretary of Defense frequently. Was the Secretary of Defense defeated or confirmed?
No, he was only delayed while we had 2 wars going on in this country.
Has a member of the President's cabinet ever been defeated on a filibuster in the history of the Senate?
Mr. President, in response to my friend's question, no. In fact, what has happened, and we find this with the judges, they stall for weeks, months, and sometimes years. When the vote comes, it's pretty good. But in the meantime, they've done significant damage to this institution and our country by stalling and making it so the President of the United States has a very difficult time doing his job because he doesn't have his people there when he needs them.
I would ask my friend from the Majority Leader then, is what he finds offensive the fact that there are debates about these matters? Since none of these members are being defeated, what is the issue here? I'm having a hard time understanding. Is it the fact that there is controversy, that there is debate? Since none of them are being defeated, is he also suggesting that we have no controversy about anybody who's sent up by the President of the United States?
Mr. President, of course that is a question that is a great big softball. Of course not. We need debate. We need good, strong debate about nominations and everything else. But what we don't need is hours and days and weeks and months of obstruction. That's what we have here. My friend, the Republican leader, is picturing to everyone within the sound of his voice something that doesn't exist. There has been obstruction that has been carried to an extent that no one ever dreamed would happen in this great republic. That's what the objection is. The objection is to obstruction. Time after time. Was more than a day, was it only a debate, Mr. President, when my Republican colleagues decided that the D.C. Circuit, some say the most important court in this country, even some say more important than the Supreme Court, when they decided there were seats, vacant seats there, and for 5 years, hold up those seats, is that debate? No, it's obstruction. If you turn to the dictionary and look at obstruction, they would point right over here.
Would the Majority Leader yield for another question? Since you have conceded that no cabinet members have been defeated, prior to the decision of the Majority Leader to break the rules of the Senate, to change the rules of the Senate, is it not the case that 215 of President Barack Obama's judges had been confirmed and only 2 had been defeated?
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
During the time we have been a country, and I don't know exactly how long it is, more than 230 years, I can't come up with it right this second, there have been 23 district court nominees filibustered. 23. 20 of them have been during the 5 years of the Obama administration, and that example is throughout the government. So this is, Mr. President, so the American people know what has taken place in this body. You can try to paint over a picture that things are just fine. All we're doing is wanting for a little bit of debate. There has been stalling, obstruction that is untoward, never considered. Now, I just can't imagine how my Republican colleagues can justify what they've done. But they do, and I accept that. But I also, Mr. President, We have an issue before this body. Again, they're trying to divert the attention and go to how many amendments, what are the rules. The issue before this body is whether long-term unemployed get an extension of their benefits. As we speak, there are people all over this country who are desperate to be able to get $300 a week, to be able to survive for another week, hoping they'll find a job. And the sad part about that, my friends say we need to do something about making sure that these people fill these vacant jobs. They're around, there are lots of places people can find work. For every job opening, there are 3 people who are unemployed trying to find a job. So I've answered the question to the best of my ability.
The Senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr.
Indiana had a consent. He asked consent. Oh, so she's going to do it. Okay. I just want my friend from Indiana to know that I wasn't trying to object to something that he has a right to do.
The Senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me just say that I share in the comments of my colleague from Indiana and my colleague from Ohio. The 3 of us voted in good faith to debate this bill, and I did so because I thought that we should try to debate this issue, that both sides, if they had an idea about how to pay for this in a responsible way, that we should bring it forward. And so when I hear the majority leader say that they've been waiting since Monday, well, I filed an amendment on Tuesday, and that amendment is straightforward. That amendment is one that would fix fraud in our tax code that really came to light in 2011 in a Treasury IG report. And what it would simply require is those who seek the additional child tax credit to file a Social Security number just like those who seek the earned income tax credit in this country. And why is that? Because the investigations of this refund, tax refund that people receive, found that they were claiming it for people who, number one, were basically not authorized to work in this country, were claiming it, and secondly, but for children that may not even exist. Investigations found that children that don't even live in this country. And so a common sense amendment that, by the way, would it pay for it? Yeah, it would pay for 3 months of unemployment insurance for American workers and for this issue that we have before this chamber. It would pay to fix the military retirement cuts to the COLA that also impacted our wounded warriors, that were done in the most recent budget, that were unfair, that members of both sides of the aisle have come together to say we should fix, and it's agree it's unfair. What else would it do? It would reduce the deficit. And what I hear from the majority leader is I hear, well, that idea, we've heard that before. Well, we may have heard it before, but we've not been allowed to vote on it. Are they so afraid of having a vote on something like this that the people of New Hampshire that I represent can't get a vote on trying to fix abuse in our tax code, on trying to solve this issue pending on the floor and to pay for it so that we don't add to our $17 trillion in debt? And by the way, is it so unreasonable? I happened to find a letter from a member of the Democrat conference who, after the Treasury IG report was issued that I'm citing here, was equally concerned as I am about this abuse in our tax code. In fact, described it as improper payments, said that it seemed reasonable to presume that unauthorized workers weren't eligible for this tax credit, and called on the commissioner of the IRS. This is a respected member of the Democrat conference who expressed concerns about it. And that member said we need to stop these unauthorized payments immediately. And that was in 2011, and we can't even get a vote on this. We can reasonably disagree. But the only way we can express those disagreements in this body, as my colleagues have said, is to be allowed to vote and to be able to represent our states and to get votes on amendments. So with that, I would ask unanimous consent to call up my amendment, 2603.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
The Senator from California.
Mr. President, talk about fiddling while Rome burns. If you are one of the 1.3 million people in this country, 222,000 in my state, whose house is burning down because they're going to lose the safety net of $300 a week to feed their family, to take care of their kids, to heat their homes. And my colleague talks about letters. I'll tell you about a letter I got from a woman who says her thermostat's at 55 degrees and she's got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And all they do on that side is complain that their amendments, they're so important, 24 of them, and they know they're all partisan. We're trying to work on a bipartisan solution. And you know what? Somebody explained to me why the Republicans never objected to extending unemployment so many times when George W. Bush was president. Not a one. It was fine. So do we make economic policy by who's in the White House or by the needs of our people? Now, this idea of going after children is one of the worst ideas I have ever heard, and I'm shocked. I am shocked. You're going to hurt children. You're going to take away food out of their mouths. It's outrageous. If there are abuses, I say to my friend, put those people in jail. You know, if there was one corrupt senator here, and there could be, or there might be, and there was in the past, and every one of us got painted with that brush, what you did in your speech is to taint every poor child who happens to benefit from that credit. Let us not go down that partisan route. Let us support our leader, and let us work through the weekend to come up with a plan. I think the majority leader has one, and I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I would say, first of all, I voted in good faith. One of 6 Republicans to debate this bill, to solve this problem. And I can't get a vote if the senator from California objects to this amendment, then why don't we vote on it? And, you know, this is nothing about protecting children. Unless you're trying to protect children that may not exist, or you're trying to protect children who don't live in the United States of America. And this is about protecting abuse within the tax code, which, again, I have a letter from a member of her caucus who recognized this problem as well, based on a Treasury IG report done during this administration. This amendment is about protecting the American taxpayer. And the American taxpayer needs some protection in this body when it comes to tax fraud. And let me just say that we need to be able to have votes on behalf of our states, on behalf of the American people. And if we disagree, let's vote them down. I don't see what the issue is there unless you're worried that it's going to pass, because it just makes too much sense. But I do have a parliamentary inquiry. Is it correct that no senator is permitted to offer an amendment to the unemployment insurance bill while the majority leader's motion to commit with instructions with further amendments is pending?
The senator is correct.
I have a further parliamentary inquiry. If a motion to table the Reid motion to commit with a further amendment is successful,